Hello, I'm Laura. Welcome back to my channel. So, as the title of this video suggests, I quit my job. It was a toxic job, so I basically really needed to get out of that situation. And, well, how did I get into that situation? So, the job itself was fine. The workload wasn't really an issue. The environment wasn't the best, but it was okay. But the issue was my colleague that I had to work with on a day-to-day basis. Well, there was a bit of an issue there. I'd been in that job for 2 years. And starting around, I'd say May last year, my colleague, who's also kind of my mentor because I'm her assistant, was her assistant, not anymore. I was her assistant. We essentially had kind of the same job. We kind of shared a lot of the same tasks essentially. And she was mentoring me. May last year is when there started to be problems. So there was, I started noticing, should I say, that she was becoming quite frustrated. She was becoming a lot more strict about things after I'd been there for a year. And if I made any mistakes, it now suddenly was basically a situation where she wouldn't really tolerate it. If I made the odd mistake here and there, sometimes she'd be okay. Other times, it was not okay, and it was a big problem. So I wouldn't really know where I'd land, because it would very much kind of depend on her mood. And as for her mood, that would really kind of vary as well, and I wouldn't really be... basically, a Monday, I understand Mondays, none of us really want to go into work, but she would be in a very bad mood certain Mondays, and I would feel very anxious about that. And, I'd kind of just try and be okay and kind of just get through the day. But oftentimes this would even carry into the rest of the week, numerous weeks, and things would get quite tense. And I don't really know why necessarily. Essentially, things got so bad that I started having panic attacks over the last couple months. Not super regularly necessarily, but I started having moments where either I could tell I was about to go into a panic attack, but I have been able to kind of manage that. But then there have been instances where I haven't been able to calm myself down and prevent myself from going into a panic attack. So it's been kind of, yeah. I basically realised that I needed to leave. So my colleague was very unapproachable on days where she wasn't in a good mood. And to be honest, it was often, and to be honest, we'd have periods of a few weeks where she'd be fine and she was approachable and it was all okay, and then it would all go severely downhill again and she wouldn't be approachable, and it was just, and I'm not the only person either who feels this way, feels that she can be very unapproachable, because most of my colleagues in the department, I do know a lot of them feel that way as well. It's but the fortunate thing for them is they can kind of step away from it and avoid her, but I couldn't. I was stuck in that situation because we needed, first of all, it was one of those job positions where I needed to be there physically at work, so I couldn't work from home. Second of all, we needed to constantly work together and relay, it was a team, so we needed teamwork to work as a team, So I couldn't just be moved away from her, essentially, or allowed to work from home or anything like that. And I couldn't just step away. I mean, I did have occasions where I purposefully stepped away for a few minutes because I needed to. But it was only for a few minutes. That's the best I could really do, because there was stuff that needed doing, and I'd kind of just keep my head down and try and keep working, I suppose, and try and ignore the way I was feeling and hoping that, whatever, just get on with your work. The other thing, and I think this is probably the worst thing, is my colleague could be quite condescending at times. There's a few occasions, 2 in particular, where she said things that were very condescending, in fact quite degrading, and I didn't appreciate it at all, but I didn't say anything, and I do think I should have done, because I mean, to be honest with you, I've always been very bad at standing up for myself. This is a personality flaw that I have, which is very deeply ingrained into me for whatever reason. To be honest, I could analyse things from my childhood that would probably be the cause of that. But anyway, to be honest with you, talking about this isn't very easy because it's still very fresh. And just thinking back on it makes me anxious, to be honest, because I felt so trapped. I felt like I was stuck in a situation where I had no choice but to go somewhere every day that made me feel really anxious, sick to my stomach at times even. And there's anxiety, feeling anxious, which all of us feel anxious at times. And then there's that feeling of like, you can feel your heart pounding in your chest and your brain just isn't really functioning anymore. It's kind of shut down level of anxious. And I was pretty much constantly in that state of anxiety. And so I couldn't focus on my work. And as a result, I was making more mistakes. I was, kind of shutting down. I kind of wasn't really listening to what people were saying around me as much anymore, because I was so in my head, like anxious. And that obviously made things worse, because my colleague realised that my performance wasn't as good, and she would get frustrated, and she would get very impatient with me about this. So it did reach a point where in January I kind of opened up about this to my boss, and he was very good. He asked if I'd spoken with my colleague about it, and I hadn't addressed this with them. So I went to my colleague and kind of talked about this, let them know that I was feeling quite anxious, that, and she admits herself that she's harsh. So this wasn't something that, she... some big revelation that she can be harsh sometimes. She herself has admitted to me previously that she can be harsh, and I told her that she has upset me a few times with the things she said in moments of frustration. She reacted to that well on the surface. She thanked me for letting her know and being honest about it, and things improved for about 3 weeks, and it was really good, actually. And that was probably that period was probably the best working relationship that me and her had, until things just went frigging downhill again. And it was just really bad. Me, my boss, and my colleague had a meeting together where we kind of tried to go over what we can do to improve the situation and kind of discuss all of this. And my colleague was essentially saying that she was getting frustrated with me making mistakes, which I understand, but the reason I was making a lot of these mistakes was because I was anxious, and I can't think properly when I'm in a constant state of fairly extreme anxiety. And we kind of went away from that with sort of saying, you know, that I need to write down my tasks more, kind of slow down, which I did take the whole slowing down thing on board. But the other thing is, sometimes my colleague would be quite, this needs doing now, make sure it's done by the end of this week sort of attitude. And then they'd realise that I'd made some mistakes as a result of trying to rush through something. And then their attitude would change, and they'd be like, well, it's better for you to take ages at it and make sure it's done properly rather than rush it. Which I agree with, right? I mean, I personally, if I was working on my own, I would do things at a slower pace to make sure it's all done correctly. But the problem with having someone next to you who's trying to say, oh, this needs doing now, and you know that they get pissed off quite easily, and you're very anxious about how they're going to react. Because I was at a point where pretty much all I was thinking about was, how can I avoid making my colleague frustrated and them essentially snapping at me or sitting next to me in clearly a very bad mood, and there being this really tense air because, oh God, it's horrible. So that's all that was consuming my mind all the time. I wasn't really thinking about, I wasn't really even thinking about how to do my work to the best of my ability anymore. I was just, how can I avoid pissing my colleague off? How can I avoid this? How can I avoid that? Oh God, there's a problem with this. I'm going to have to tell my colleague, and they're going to get pissed off. I don't know if it might have been resolved if I'd brought this up sooner, because I only brought it up after about 8 months of dealing with this situation. And I think I'd started to really I was at a point where I'd really had enough with it, and it improved momentarily, like I said. Then it started to fall apart, and I had a week off work, not last week, but the week before, and I just couldn't relax. I wasn't super anxious, like panic attack level anxious throughout that week, but I was definitely constantly anxious about the thought of having to go back. What mood was this colleague of mine going to be in? Would they have found anything while I wasn't there that's an issue that that might have pissed them off? So when it came to the Monday that I was supposed to go back, before going in, I had a meltdown. I had a panic attack essentially before going into work, and I just genuinely felt like I just couldn't do this anymore. I was like, so I called up my boss. And he was very nice, and he said, take the day off, don't force yourself to come in. So that's what I did. And he said that he would speak to my colleague, and over the phone when he called me back later on, he said that he'd spoken with my colleague and that she was, she felt bad. Basically, he reassured me that she would be fine, that everything would be all right. And so I went back in the next day, which was a Tuesday, and things were not okay at all. She just didn't even talk to me. I mean, I walked in and said, "Good morning," as always. She responded with "morning," but, you know, kind of not in a pleasant tone. And then throughout the whole day, there was just this tension there. And I thought, I can't do this. I can't work with someone who, if they're in a bad mood, they're just completely unapproachable. And if I get upset, or if I have an issue, like I you know, have a panic attack and don't go in one day, that they then that it pisses them off. I don't really know what the answer to this would have been, to be honest with you. I'd had enough of it. So I got home that day and I was just a mess. That evening, I couldn't sleep. It was probably the worst state I'd been in up to that point. And so the next morning when I woke up and I was going through the motions of getting ready for work, and I couldn't face going into work, so I called my boss and told him that I wanted to hand in my notice. So I spoke with my boss that I wanted to resign, and, you know, he knew my situation and knew that it was making me that I was really anxious. And I confessed to him that I'd been having panic attacks, and I, you know, was getting really upset in the evenings after work, and feeling sick at the idea of having to come to work, and that I just couldn't do this anymore, and I didn't even want to come in the following day, if I was being honest with him. And so he spoke with HR, and essentially I was permitted to resign without having to work my notice period. So that means I'm unemployed at the moment, and obviously it's not an ideal situation, and not a situation that I wanted to be in, but it's, for me, a better situation than having to go to work, being anxious constantly while I'm there, and and feeling horrible. It wasn't just that I was feeling anxious, I was also starting to feel very unhappy and kind of depressed, and I was it's definitely affected my confidence. I was a more confident person going into this job than I am coming out of it. And I've never been a very confident person anyway, to be honest with you. If you're in a job and it's affecting your mental health, you should probably really consider leaving, even if you don't have another job lined up. I know that there's some people that's probably not even an option for, and that really sucks, because I've been very fortunate that I live with my parents still, so I don't have a mortgage, I don't pay rent. I do pay towards the household bills, but it's obviously a much smaller amount of money than if I was paying rent and paying all my own bills in my own place. And I have a lump of savings. Well, it stopped filming there for a bit and I didn't even realise, because my storage on my phone was full, so I had to clean up a bit, remove some files. So I don't really know what I was up to, but basically what I wanted to say is, if you're in a situation where your mental health is being affected, please don't force yourself to stay in that situation. It's never worth it. Nothing's worth your mental health and and your well-being and your happiness. It's a lesson that I keep having to teach myself, basically, because for some reason I'm always so willing to just sacrifice my well-being and my mental health for the sake of other people, or the sake of what's expected of me, or all of that sort of thing. So that's a lesson that I really need to work on, and I think there's probably a lot of us that do the same thing. So anyway, thank you for watching, and hopefully my next videos will be a bit more cheerful. But, and also, here's my cat Mitzi. Hey Mitzi, you gonna say bye-bye? Here she is. This is my daughter Mitzi. She's a little cutie. She's helped me through this as well. She's a lovely, 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 lovely cat. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye. I just wanted to add as well, if you've had any similar experiences or any experiences you wanted to share about work, doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, the same kind of situation as mine, but if you've had any, you know, kind of issues with mental health as a result of, you know, your work, please leave a comment, because I did actually genuinely really enjoy reading comments about everyone's experiences in my first video. I think that's kind of what I'd like to do with my channel, is to kind of share my experiences and kind of encourage other people to share theirs, so that we can kind of interact and you know, share experiences. Because I think when people share their experiences, it kind of normalizes things. It allows people to get things off their chest. It allows people to interact with and see other people who have gone through similar things and feel understood and feel kind of validated as well. So yeah, so if you have had any similar experiences or anything like that you want to kind of get off your chest, leave it in the comments. Also, this is completely unrelated, but I've been thinking about making a second channel specifically for videos about video games, because I really like gaming and video games and game consoles. I'm a console gamer, so I like consoles and handheld consoles and all that sort of thing. I'm not really a PC gamer, so I wanted to yeah, I think I might make a second channel. If anyone would be interested in that kind of content, let me know in the comments as well, just so I can kind of grasp, you know, what the situation is with that. And also, because I could post videos about video games on this channel, but I think it's probably better if I separate them. But let me know what you think about that as well in the comments. And yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Because obviously at the moment I'm unemployed, I have time on my hands, so I'll probably be posting maybe 2 videos a week for the time being, and we'll see how that goes. And yeah, thank you for watching. Bye bye.